welcome back to the Ludiverse. I'm your host, Jay, and my guest today, would you care to introduce yourself?
Hello, I'm Shawn. Thank you for having me, Jay. This is going to be a good episode, I think.
I don't think I've had a bad episode, so the odds are good.
Okay, cool.
You have your own podcast, yes?
I do, yeah. It's called Tough Titties.
Well, that name leaves some areas for interpretation. What is your podcast about?
Wow. So my podcast is a lot about sex, dating, relationships. You know, I sprinkle in some mental health and psychology stuff in there because that's kind of where a lot of our behavior comes from when it comes to a lot of this stuff, when it comes to dating, relationship, sex, all that jazz. So I definitely like to incorporate that too. And basically every week I have a new guest on who is an expert, as you could say, in this wide field. So I've had a breakup coach on before. I've had a kink educator on before. I've had a therapist on before. So we kind of cover a lot of different stuff.
Oh, right on.
Right on.
It can't be easy keeping up with a weekly schedule because my show's bi-weekly and I'm still struggling half the time.
Yeah, so it is a little difficult, but I actually have 2 interns who help me a lot, so that's good. Love them. You should get some interns.
Yeah, I might look into that.
You should.
I'm running this whole show by myself.
Yeah, I was too, and it is it's a lot of work. So I got a couple interns to help me out, especially with like social media stuff. But yeah.
So where is your show available? Is it just everywhere, or do you have specific platforms?
It's pretty much everywhere. I tried to get it on pretty much everything. So you can get it on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Anchor, Audible, Google Podcasts, basically wherever, I feel like.
Yeah, Anchor's good for the distribution.
Yeah, for sure.
I've only had to manually add it to a couple of platforms. Like for some reason, Anchor doesn't do Stitcher.
Yeah. I also had to manually do it for iHeartRadio and I think Audible as well.
Yeah. But yeah, you go into most app stores and it's like podcast thing and just this whole list pops up.
Yeah.
And you got to figure out which ones are actually feeds and which ones are just copies of other feeds. And oh, so much hassle.
It is a hassle. That's why you got to get some interns.
So when you first contacted me, I asked, what do you want to talk about? And you mentioned the whole getting started in sexuality and kink and fetish lifestyles at a young age. And it's an interesting subject because a lot of people don't know where to get started because...
Yeah, it's hard.
Nobody wants to talk about this stuff, and it's so reinforced that it's bad that a lot of the people that want to know are afraid to ask.
Which is why I brought on a kink educator.
Yeah, I had a kink educator on my show also.
Yeah, so it's definitely helped me like having these guests on for my own sake. So I have to assume that it helps at least one other person.
Yeah. So from your perspective, from everything that you've learned through, your own life and doing your show, I'll just let you go on. What about being young in the kink lifestyle and getting started out is there? Would you have to tell to anybody?
There is kind of a lot to unpack there. So for me, I think I kind of knew I was interested, but I didn't know what the interest was, if that makes sense, when I would say like 2 or 3 years ago. And I had a boyfriend at the time, and like there were things that I wanted to do, but I didn't know how to express that to him. And I didn't know really what it was. And at the time too, I think the second 50 Shades of Grey came out. So that was like a whole big thing. And BDSM started, I guess, being talked about a little bit more, even though I think people in the community have a different perspective on the movie, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, but at least it got people talking, I guess. But so yeah, for me, that's kind of where it started. I never really like voiced my interest in that. Like the farthest I kind of got was like, let's get some handcuffs. So we did. Like that's pretty much as far as it went. Like I didn't know how to communicate that to him because at the time I was like 20. So I think I matured a little bit in the last 3 years, but so that's kind of where it started. And then I think I got really into podcasts around the same time as that. And within the last couple of years, I started listening to more sex podcasts and ones that talk about kink and ones that brought on different guests that talked about their experiences in kink and stuff like that. So I started like hearing more about it, learning more about it. And then I started joining like Facebook groups just to see what people were talking about in there. And so I learned a lot from that too. I did my own research, just like Googling shit. And then I still have yet to like actually experience anything yet because I've had some weird encounters with people. So it's definitely hard. And I think too, for me, I was just like on the hunt for like a partner, if that makes sense. Like, what is it called? Sub-frenzy or something like that?
That's not a term that I've come across in any of my conversations. So that's new on me.
Okay, people, it's like basically, I think it's like when people are first entering the community and like identifying as a sub and they really just want to find like a dom to experience it without really being safe, if that makes sense. So they're kind of just trying to take whatever they can get. And so I don't know if you've heard this, but I feel like you have, that like FetLife isn't the best place to find a partner.
Absolutely.
Right. So, okay. So that's something that I've learned recently after meeting a couple people. And I'm like, what is going on? This is not what I signed up for kind of thing. I went to I guess it was a munch, you could say. It was like people rented out a bar and we were all like drinking and playing pool. But there was also like a demonstration of CBT. So that almost made me throw up. I was really not expecting to see that like right in front of my eyes.
Yeah, that's an odd thing to be like, what's my first exposure? Oh, that. Okay, yeah.
That really was. And I was like, whoa, yeah. That was a lot. And there was a guy there that had invited me to a party. He's like in his late 50s, I think, early 60s, and I'm 23. And so he invited me via FetLife to his party. And I thought he was just being nice, but really he was like being kind of predatory, and he was watching me the whole time at this event, even though I didn't know he was watching me. And it was just like a whole weird, yeah. So to sum it up, I've had a lot of weird experiences that I feel like the being a newbie kind of thing, like that's not really talked about that much, because if it was, I think I would have been more careful.
Yeah, I've heard that the only thing FetLife's any good for these days is that they have the most different kinks and fetishes listed in one place. So you go into their list of what am I into, you go down the list, and anything you're curious about, you go somewhere else and look for the information.
Yeah, I think too, like, I guess networking and seeing events that you could potentially go to, like munches, so you can actually meet people in real life instead of just messaging random people on that website. But it's definitely been an interesting experience so far. And I've recently decided I needed to take a break from it because it was really draining me. Has that ever happened to you?
I don't really spend a lot of time on FetLife. It's like I got on it when I first started thinking about everything. Mm-hmm. And I'm not, I guess, in my area, there's not a lot going on. Mm-hmm. Plus, because I'm in a relationship, there's less interaction that I was getting into, because I'm really bad at communicating.
Well, that's not good. You have a podcast.
Yeah, this is the extent of, like, I have to come way outside of my comfort zone to do this, and it's all in the name of education. So that's why I can do it.
Well, it probably helps you. too. Maybe
Yeah,
get a little better at it.
Yeah, it's my immersion therapy.
Uh-huh.
But it was a lot of communications that just kind of felt dead because I stopped talking.
Yeah.
So I kind of converted my FetLife account to just for the podcast. And it's like, if anybody comes across it, I can direct them to the show. But
right.
It's not, that website isn't for me.
Yeah.
So it may be for somebody else, but it doesn't work well for me.
Mm-hmm. I don't think it works well for me either. So.
Well, there's been talk of setting up a new website that is more closely monitored and regulated, because there's way too much that just goes in the name of open speech. There's a lot of stuff that goes by unchecked,
right?
Even when it's reported, like this is a problem,
right?
The admin teams on FetLife just kind of, oh well, there's nothing we can do about it. So
yeah, I have tried. Have you heard of the app called Field?
No.
Okay, well, that's another thing you can start telling people about, because it's more like a regular vanilla dating app, but like in terms of the style of it. But it's a lot like more user friendly than FetLife, in my opinion. But you can also like put your interests, and if you're like seeking what kind of like kinks or something that you're seeking, stuff like that. And you can go from there. Whereas I feel like FetLife is kind of just like a free for all, and it's kind of like predatory. Like anybody can message you, you know what I mean? And for me, it says on my FetLife like my age, and it also, I am not the type of person who put their vagina as their profile picture. I just put my face. And yeah, I get a lot of like creepy, weird messages, especially from like older men too, like 60s, asking me to like move in. And I'm like, no, I'm living with my mother. Thank you. So on Field, it kind of has to be a mutual thing where like if you match with each other, then you can message each other. So it kind of has that nice little barrier there.
So Field, like Field?
It's Feeld. It used to be called Thrinder, which was like the Tinder for threesomes.
Oh, fun.
Yeah. So now, I mean, it has like kink BDSM stuff. It also has like poly stuff too, like, and ethical non-monogamy stuff and whatever. Like you can put all that stuff in your profile. So it's nice in that way because it's kind of open to everything.
Well, that's good. That's something I might have to look into.
Yeah, you should. I think it's also nice for people that are my age too, trying to find like-minded people, because I guess, I don't know if it's just my area that it's a lot of people that are way older than me, but on Field, I've found a lot more people that are closer in age. So if that's a barrier for any of you, I would check out Field, Feeld.
Okay. So do you have any kind of education when it comes to like sexuality and such, or is this all purely just like hobby interests that just kind of got out of control, like mine?
I would say more like you, but I have been thinking about potentially, getting educated on it. I think, being like a sex educator or something could be cool, could be in my future. But for right now, no, I just like having these conversations.
Well, the world needs more sex education.
I know.
Because in America, the school's sex education programs is so bad.
So bad. And I remember I had this conversation with somebody, but I remember like what my sex education was. And we started it in like 5th grade because they were like talking about periods and stuff. But when we got to middle school, that's when they started talking about STDs. And of course, they show you like this grossest, scariest picture that they can find on Google. They're like, this is what's going to happen to you if you have sex, Like they just try and scare the shit out of you. But in reality, a lot of these STIs are either treatable, manageable, or curable, you know?
Right. Yeah, you get that scare tactic of if you have sex, you're going to die. It's like, no, that's not how that works.
I know.
Don't hold hands or you're going to get pregnant. Do you know how the human body works?
They don't, clearly.
But yeah, so with any luck, shows like yours and mine will get the world a little more open wide, and the next generation of the world will actually know what they're doing. Because I mean that first time has its own issues, because
you mean the first time you have sex?
The first time, yes. The first
I
time
want to hear your sex story, losing your virginity. If you tell yours, I'll tell mine. Mine's like kind of sad. Not sad like it was traumatizing. It was just like not cute in any form.
Mine is just really spur of the moment in her living room. It's just.
How old were you?
I was actually 20.
It's okay. I was 19, so.
Yeah, it was actually it was her sister's living room. We were babysitting. So.
What were you babysitting? A child?
It was. I was watching the kids, and she was hanging over because we were dating, and I was like, everyone had gone out to a bar, and I was only 20, so I couldn't go to the bar, and. All the kids were asleep.
Okay, good.
So.
I was worried.
Oh yeah, I'm not. No, not while the kids are. No. No, it was like 11 o'clock at night.
Okay, how was it for you?
Fast.
Well,
the first time's usually pretty quick for the guys.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is like better than what it is for the girl, I think. The girl, like, I don't know. In my experience, it hurt so bad. I was like, why do people do this? This is horrible. And I was a little bit of a psycho. And I was like, I just want to get this shit over with because I thought I was old. Like you were close to you were 20 when you had sex for the first time. I was 19. So I thought I was old to not have had sex because all of my friends did. So I just like found somebody that I went to high school with. He was a couple years older than me. And I was like, he's hot. I choose him. But I didn't want to tell him that I was a virgin, which was the first mistake. And I lost my virginity in doggy, which I was like, that was another mistake. And yeah, I had to pretend that it felt good when it really killed. And then I was laying in my bed and I knew that I was bleeding, and I knew if I got up, it would just like fall out of me, So I said, you could let yourself out. And he did. And then I went to my bathroom and took care of all that. And that was it.
Okay, I'm done with you. You may go.
Yeah, pretty much. I was like, yeah, you can let yourself out now. Thank you.
See, that's one of the big problems with the way the world is working, because it's like if there was a proper education, then your first time wouldn't have been so bad, because it's like if you know even a little bit about what you're doing, things can go so much smoother, because I hear stories all the time about, the first time is going to hurt, because the whole misunderstanding of what the hymen is. It's not like a wall that you have to break through. The hymen is an entirely different part. But like the first time doesn't have to be painful. There's the proper warming up so that the body lubricates itself. There's muscle relaxing. There's additional lubricants you can use. There are so many things that can be done so the first time isn't a painful experience. There's likely still going to be bleeding. I'm
so happy that mine's over.
Oh yeah. For guys, their first time is just like, oh yeah, I'm a man now. And for a woman, the first time is typically, it's like, finally, get off me.
Yeah, that's kind of how it was for me. And I don't know, maybe it's like a me thing where like every time I do like a new sexual experience, I'm like, that's literally disgusting, because I remember the first like make out kiss that I had, I was like, what the actual? That is so gross. First of all, it was also like right behind a dumpster. So maybe that maybe that helped. But
really setting the mood.
Yeah, I was just like, how do people like find this enjoyable? It like is disgusting. I genuinely felt that way. And I was like, I really don't want to ever do that again. And then I felt kind of that way after the first time I had sex, where I was like, that hurt so badly. I don't understand how that is enjoyable for women, like at all. But I think, you just gotta power through it, unfortunately. I mean, for me, like, I didn't tell the person that I was a virgin because I was scared that he was going to think I would fall in love with him after. You know how some guys think that if you take a girl's virginity.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Thank you, Hollywood.
Yeah. So I was like, hell no, I'm just trying to get this over with. So I'm not going to lose my chance here. So I didn't tell him. And I'm sure if I did tell him and he was like fine with it, I'm sure it would have gone a lot smoother and softer and probably a little less pain for me. But, that was the choice I decided to make.
Yeah, actually, I read a study. It's been years, so it might have been disproven since then. But
okay,
and I can't even remember where I read it. But statistically, it's the male who's more likely to get attached to the person that they lose their virginity to than the female.
Oh,
because it's usually such an unpleasant experience for the female.
That's true.
So they're like they see that person and that's what they connect with them. It's like, this was a bad experience. Yeah. So I'm not, unless there's already deep feelings at foretime. Mm-hmm. There's less of I'm going to fall for this person. This person has to be. For the guy, it's like,
that felt so good.
We're taught from like childhood that your value is based on how much sex you're having.
A male's value. Yeah.
That's what I meant. Yeah. Because like for us, that's how it is for us. It's like all through school, you got your other classmates, like, talking about having sex and stuff well before they're old enough to know what sex is. Right. And they're making up all these stories. So when you finally have it, you're like, finally, I'm joining the upper elite of my gender. Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
And because it's a really positive experience, guys are more likely to hook on. It's like this person made a major change in my life, so they need to stay in my life. And a lot of time, the woman, the female partner is like, get away from me. You're getting clingy.
Yeah, that actually makes sense. I want to see if that if I can find that study that you were talking about, because it does make sense. I think most of the people, or the girls that I know, their first time did not feel pleasurable.
But yeah, like I can't even remember where I read it. I was scrolling around the internet.
Mm-hmm. Rabbit hole.
And yeah, one thing led to another, and I came across the thing, and I was like, no, that makes sense. And I wasn't like doing it for anything particular, so I didn't even think to write anything down.
It's okay. I believe you.
But, well, I mean, I'm not going to make up something that makes my gender look bad just for kicks.
Feelings aren't bad.
Right. But, it's that whole Hollywood has got, like, you see all the time in movies. Mm-hmm. Some guy takes some girl's virginity and she's instantly a lovesick puppy.
Nope.
Oh, I need to have your babies. We need to be married. Nope. And they're going to be like the psycho outside the windows. Like, you can't have another woman.
No, not me.
And that's not usually how it goes.
I was all like, you can let yourself out, honey. I'm not even getting up for you.
We need better sex education.
Yeah.
We need better, like, sexual representation in Hollywood, because the sexism is so prevalent.
Yep.
And like literature and all kinds of media, even video games will make it look like some kind of a conquest for men to have sex if there's any kind of adult contact. Mm-hmm. And I'm not going to be like, sex should only be for procreation, because no, sex is fun. I like having sex. Mm-hmm. And I'm not going to stop. Well, hopefully.
Yeah.
There are people who have bad experiences and just get scared away from it.
Yeah.
And then there's, asexuals who just, take it or leave it.
I need to talk to someone who's asexual.
I also, too, yes. I would like to see, to understand.
If any of you are listening that are asexual, reach out to us. We want to talk to you.
Might even do a collaboration interview for both shows.
Yes, I need to know. I just want to know, what it's like to be you. Be in your shoes for a day.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. But I think until it's commonplace for people to talk about sex, we're not going to get anywhere because it's too many people are afraid to speak their mind about it.
Do you have friends or family that know that you have this podcast?
I told everybody I have this podcast. I put it up on my Facebook. I was like, I have a sex and a kink, fetish, and sexuality podcast. Here's the link to it. Go listen to it. And I haven't really spoken to my dad since.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, has anybody reacted negatively?
Yeah. All of my friends were like, hey, that's awesome. I don't think many of them actually listen, but they were like, hey, cool. Good on you.
Yeah.
And I know my mom doesn't listen because she's hyper Christian.
Oh, scary.
But she's like, you know what? You do you.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. So, my mom is I'm Jewish, so I'm not hyper Christian. My mom just doesn't want to hear me talk about me sucking dick, I think. She's like, you go off, queen. She's like, let's brand you. She really wants me to be successful, but she's like, I'm not listening to that shit. You know what I mean? Which is fine. I feel like there are a lot of people who listening to people talk about sex makes them uncomfortable, which I'm not going to force you. But I had one of my best friends that I've known since elementary school. She was basically shunned me. She was like, the fact that you talk about your clit and your daddy issues put it on the internet. What is wrong with you? Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, what is wrong with you, you prude bitch? And so I haven't talked to her since February, but you and I are doing God's work.
Yeah. It's I was a preschool teacher.
Well,
and I got the education bug. It's I like teaching. I like taking information that I know and giving it to other people. And then I've mentioned this on the show before, but I was in a group of a chat group, and we were like, we're talking about kinks and stuff, and we didn't know things. So we're like, well, we can use this chat and we'll look things up and we'll learn and, we'll all understand what's going on. This will be a safe place to talk about it. And I had gotten into podcasts. I was mostly listening to nerd podcasts, Dungeons and Dragons and stuff like that. And I was like, let's do a podcast because I'd been wanting to do one and couldn't think of a topic.
Sex, duh. We all fucking.
So it's everyone was like, yeah, we can all do that. And then now there's only two of us that are still doing anything at all. My original partner, co-host Courtney, who she's busy with her own things, so she hasn't been around for the last few episodes. But so it's I can learn, which I love to learn things, and also educate, which great. I mean, I could easily just talk to people and keep that information to myself, but why? The world needs to know this stuff.
Yeah.
It's I've talked to people about traumas. I've talked to people about, opening themselves to new experiences and, how to understand themselves better. And it's yes, we're talking about sex. We're talking about putting body parts in other body parts. And we're talking about, bodily fluids of all types going all over the place. It's all dirty. It's all filthy. But there's so much more to it than that.
Yeah.
If you can start to understand yourself sexually, then you start to understand more about yourself other ways. You can accept everything about yourself. You're going to feel more at home in your own skin. The Ludiverse is sponsored by the House of Algos. Go to gumroad.com/House of Algos for a wide number of recorded classes on BDSM topics, including mind-fucking, negotiation, knife play, fire play, flogging, whips, developing your dom or sub side, finding play partners, and much more. And use discount code COMMUNICATE, COMMUNICATE, for 10% off of any purchase. That's House of Algos, HOUSEOFALGOS. I was a teenager when I started being like, you know what, this human-shaped animal's kind of attractive. Wonder what's going on there. And then a few years later,
what is
I
a
learned the term furry.
human-shaped animal?
Well, it's like Lola Bunny.
Who?
Do you watch cartoons?
No.
No.
Let me Google.
Okay.
What did you say it was?
Have you seen any of the ads for the movie Space Jam?
Yeah.
That female rabbit?
Oh. Yes, I know. Yes, I know who you're talking about.
Yeah. Like
you thought she was later, hot.
Well, she wasn't around when I started, you know. I started back in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
And back then it was, you know, other people, you know, other characters like Maid Marian from the Disney Robin Hood movie. And it was like it's kind of attractive. I don't know what's going on with that. And then a few years later I learned the term furry. And it's like, okay, I guess that's who I am.
Mm-hmm.
And I found that there were people that had a common interest that I could talk to. Not many, because like the area I grew up in was weirdly conservative when it came to sex, but like we had a meth problem. So
well,
it was a very weird situation.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's like I'm not wrong for being interested in this.
No. I think as long as you're not like actually hurting anybody without their consent, you know, I feel like if whatever you're into is fine, you know?
Right. That's, you know, we've said that on this show before. And it's just like, we need to be able to talk to people about this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so many people are so afraid to talk about it that a lot of what we're trying to find, like when back in the 90s, when I first started being interested in not just missionary sex.
Yeah.
It was just like, there was no Google.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't be like, you know, I'm into this. What is it? You
right.
know, are there other people around that I could talk to? Can I find a chat room? You know, like,
yeah.
I remember the early days of the Yahoo chat rooms, and they were not places you wanted to go for information.
Yeah, I bet not. I was born in 98.
Okay, so, yeah.
So I wasn't part of that.
Yeah, I'm 40, so I was born in 81.
Okay.
And it's just the fact that we have access to the basic collective of human knowledge on a device that we carry in our pocket
mm-hmm.
is so great.
Yeah.
If people will use it.
I think people do use it. They just don't want to admit it. Right.
But like, there are some people who will use it and actually do their research and learn the things. And there's other people that, like, I've heard conversations, I've read conversations in like Facebook groups and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And these people, it's like they read they read a topic and that's as far as it goes. Like, now I'm an expert on pegging because I read one small article that somebody wrote in, you know, Hustler 12 years ago.
Yeah.
So now I'm an expert, so you can come to me for all your information, and they know nothing.
Right.
But people go to them because they say they know what they're doing. Like, we need actual people who know what they're talking about to explain these things to the world.
Yeah.
Because we need safety.
Well, that's the thing. It's like with the lack of information. Well, there's plenty of information. It's just sometimes people don't want to seek it out, but sometimes people like try to do things on their own and then they end up with like a fucking bottle of mustard up their butthole stuck in there. And then you're like, gotta go to the hospital. And then everybody knows that you're into butt stuff with bottles of mustard, you know?
Yeah. Like, I read a thing the other day about somebody who put like some guy who put a charging cable in his penis.
Okay, well,
and got it stuck.
that's his
And
own
it's like,
fault. I don't feel bad for him.
Why? It's like why?
That's survival of
why?
the fittest right there. Sorry.
Yes, absolutely.
If you're that dumb, I don't feel bad for you.
And it's just like, I can understand wanting to experiment with things, but why is that something you jump to?
I don't know, like use a straw or something. Why something electronic?
It's like I'm still trying to find somebody who'll talk to me about sounding. It's like this thing you put these little metal rods inside the shaft of the penis, and like and I cannot find anybody who's willing to talk to me about it.
Oh my God!
Like, it's like yeah, I'll joke about it on this Facebook group. I've done this. Anybody else into it? Blah blah blah. But when it comes to like actually talking about it openly, oh no, I'm not comfortable with that.
You should look on FetLife.
I have.
You can't find anybody?
I can't find anybody who's willing to do it on a podcast.
When I went to that munch that I was telling you about, I started talking to this girl, and she told me that she had done that to a guy, and I was like, holy shit, because I didn't know what sounding was, because I was like, what does that have to, like the name of it doesn't make sense to me. So I was like, what are you talking about? And she explained it to me, and I was like, oh, that's new for me. Haven't heard about that one. So there are people out there, but yeah, people are still like very closed off sometimes, even if they want to believe that they're open.
Yeah, it's just like eventually I'll find somebody who will talk to me about every topic that I come across. But so far I haven't had luck on a couple of them. That and the FinDom, the financial domination one. They'll advertise for themselves all day long on Twitter and other sites, but they won't talk about it.
I would love to do that. Don't you just have to like be mean to somebody and then they give you their money?
Well, that's the thing is I don't know. Honestly,
doesn't that sound kind of amazing though?
I mean, I'm just like an intrinsically nice person, so I don't think I could do it. But I mean, I'm not going to yuck somebody's yum just because it's not for me, but it's just like, talk to me about it. Let me understand what's going on, please.
From what I have heard, I've heard a girl on another podcast talk about her being a FinDom, and she literally like meets up with this guy at an ATM, and she's like, says mean stuff to him, and then she's like, give me $500, and he just deposits it, and he takes out $500, gives it to her, and she walks away. And I'm like, what? That's the easiest job ever.
Wow.
Yeah. And there are these things called pay pigs, where I think you kind of do the same thing. You bully them a little bit, and then they give you money.
To each their own.
Yeah. I mean, maybe I should look into that. I'm unemployed. I could use some extra cash.
Well, it's like I've been, I came across, there's another podcast that I heard that I tried to get their host to come on the show. It's talking about the whole sugar baby and sugar daddy.
I also want to be a sugar baby really bad.
But it's like she's got this whole show talking about how to do it safely and what to expect. And it's like, come on my show. She's like, I'd love to. And then I can't get in touch with her anymore. So it's like,
Yeah. What show is it?
It's called Sugar Pussy Podcast.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's definitely like that is something that you also need to be careful with too, because I have been on Seeking Arrangements, and I think a lot of the men on there that are trying to be sugar daddies, one, are like not actually rich. So that is a problem. And two, a lot of the interest for these guys is having power over the girl. So I think, for women or the people that are trying to be the sugar baby, we got to just be careful, because you may end up in a situation that you don't really want to be in, because you feel indebted to that person because he does give you money.
Yeah. Again, it's safety.
Yeah.
Like anybody who's listened to more than one episode of this show in the past knows that it's all about communication in this show. But, the safety is right up there. It's how I end the show. It's like, keep communicating, keep each other safe.
Yeah.
Because it's like, this is all supposed to be fun.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, yes, for some people, fun is being beaten with a stick until they're black and blue and can't move. Fine.
Yeah.
But it's done in a controlled situation. It's like, this is what I want. And they know ahead of time that's what they're getting into.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, while, yes, it is dangerous, there are kinks and fetishes that are dangerous. Like, I was talking to one guy and he mentioned skin flaying.
What the hell is that?
It's like where they actually have pieces of their skin cut away from their body.
No.
And then kind of attached back down. It's like,
no.
Why?
No.
Why?
No.
It's like, okay, fine. You know what?
You could get like infections from that.
Yes.
No.
That's why you need to absolutely know what you're doing ahead of time. You have to take all the proper precautions and all the safety things. And even then, you have to be ready to stop the moment something goes wrong. And it's just...
Nope. I don't have any interest in anything with knives or blood or anything like that. Do you?
It's...
Okay, so that's a yeah.
well, I have a thing with knives.
Okay, what does that mean?
But, like, I have a knife collection.
Okay.
And I like the way cold steel feels on my skin.
Okay.
And there's something about running the blade over the skin of my partner. Like, most of my knives are dull. They're display pieces purely for, I mean, yes, I could still stab somebody with them because they are a blade, but they're not sharp enough that, like, if you just like lightly rub it over somebody's arm, it's not going to cut into them. But it's just like that one thin line of cold steel is a thrill for some people. And, and I, it's a thing for me,
Okay.
But I'm not going to cut pieces of my partner away from their body. Like, if somebody came to me and is like, I want to try this, I'm like, you need to find somebody else.
Yeah, I think I have to yuck that yum. I'm so sorry, but that is like some cannibal shit, low key.
Yeah, it's like
I have to yuck that yum. It's
like I have cook experience. I'm a cook.
Okay.
I know how to handle knives. I know how to handle cutting meat, but I'm doing it in a way that I have chunks of meat. You don't want me cutting on your body
like meat.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I have to yuck that yum. So sorry, but that is just like, I don't know. I think that's going a little bit too far, like crossing a little bit of a boundary that most people should have. Like, I don't know. Some stuff I'm just like, this may be controversial, but there are some kinks, even if it is consensual, like there's gotta be something going on in your brain to make you be able to do that to somebody else, like me and you just said we could not take a knife and start peeling off somebody's skin. Like, how do you have that mental ability to get yourself to do that? Something's off.
Yeah. There are people who say that me being into, being a furry means that there's something off with me. There are, like, any kind of kink and fetish could be construed as some kind of a mental disorder for the most part. But so I've learned that if it's not for me, it's just not for me. I'm not going to tell somebody, straight out that they shouldn't be interested in it, but I am going to try to understand why and make it clear that I'm not.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just the world. I didn't realize when I got started on this exactly how broad kink and fetish was.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I knew there was more to know than I knew.
Right.
It's like there is so much that I don't know, so I need to learn it. I had no idea how much I didn't know.
Yeah, it's almost never ending.
And I'm just like, I joined a bunch of kink discussion Facebook groups, and like I started looking for stuff on Twitter and Reddit and Instagram and all this stuff, and the things will pop up, and it's like I didn't even know that was a thing.
Right.
How is that even a thing?
Almost everything is a thing. It's kind of scary.
Yeah. So it's an ongoing process of education and trying to make sure that anything that does happen can have a better chance of being done safely. If somebody is into, like, say if somebody wants to try pegging for the first time, it's a pretty simple, low risk fetish. I mean, there is a risk. If you don't do it right, there could be a serious problem.
Yeah.
But if like they hear somebody on my show or your show or some show like ours talk about it, and they get like, well, maybe I should learn a little bit more before I get started, then damn it, we've done our job.
Yeah.
We've done something right. We've saved somebody from a potential injury.
Yeah.
So that's like somebody asked me, it's like, so do you make a lot of money from your podcast?
No.
Not at all. I've been doing the show for about 1.5 years now, and because of Anchor allowing you to run ads for their website from day one, I've managed to make total about $60.
Yeah.
In 1.5 years, and I managed to buy a new microphone with it.
Woohoo!
Yay! You know, I'm not going out and buying a new car with my podcasting money, and I don't care. I'm not in this for the money. If I was in it for the money, I would have made sure to contact every sex toy company in the country. And it's like, you need to sponsor me because I'm going to talk about this stuff. So, I mean, yeah, I have some people that have agreed to sponsor the show. Great. I don't think I'm going to make a lot of money off of that. Fine. Whatever. I'm not in this for the money. Anybody who gets into podcasting for the money, just don't do it. Find another hobby. It is so much harder work than you think it is. I need interns.
Yeah, I'm telling you.
Because it's like I will record for an hour and I am guaranteed editing for at least at minimum 2 hours.
Yeah.
It's double the editing, and then, you know, making sure that all the information is in the show notes and all the right files get put into the programming, and it's
a pain in the arse.
I have to listen to every show 3 times minimum. Like I hear everything when I'm recording it. I hear everything when I'm editing it. And then I don't know if everybody does this. I don't think so. But I listen to it again once it's released so that I can make sure that it actually sounds good.
I do not.
So
I'm too lazy. I'm like, well, if it doesn't sound good, people aren't going to listen to it, so whatever. Then I'll know if it sounds bad.
But it's just like, yeah, podcasting is, while not work, it is very time consuming. I mean, yeah, you could just record and release pure raw audio, but I don't know. I can't listen to myself, you know, for an hour. I can't do it.
Well, that's the power of editing, but unfortunately it does take time.
Yeah. And then, you know, there's going out and finding guests and getting the scheduling together. And it's like we've had to reschedule 2-3 times because of different conflicting things. Yep. So,
but it worked out. I'm here.
Eventually it worked out. Yeah. So learn what you're doing before you have any kind of sex.
And don't use porn to teach you how to have sex, please. For the love of God. That's why I've had so much bad sex with men, because they think that porn is the way to go. And I'm like, you don't even know where the clit is, sir. Get out of here. So read a book, listen to a podcast, look at some diagrams of the anatomy if you need to, because porn isn't real.
Yeah. Oh, porn is so just
fake.
Porn is male power fantasies for the most part. I mean, yeah, there are some women who have their little fantasies they get thrown into, but it's just like, you're not going to get some woman who wants to pay you for pizza with sex. You're never going to be asked over to fix the plumbing for anything more than, oh, there's a clog in my sink.
Yeah, I mean the acting isn't the best. I will tell you that. But yeah, I mean, you have to remember that it's literally theatrics and porn is entertainment. It's not for education. So just remember that when you're watching it, because a lot of the things that you see have been shot multiple times. There's makeup, there's angles, there's water squirted up some girl's vagina so her squirt looks huge like a fire hydrant. Like there's just so many things and lighting and everything that goes into this for you to watch it. So just like don't expect your sex to look like porn or seem like porn, because it's most likely not going to be like that.
Yeah, like I have a friend who did porn, and like it looks like they're having sex for just hours.
Yeah.
With no stopping.
Yeah.
And that's not the case.
No.
There are, like, every time the camera changes to a different angle is because they've stopped.
Yeah.
It's like they stopped, they got some water, they had a snack, and then they got back into it.
Yeah, it's just I think we forget that sometimes, especially because, we're watching porn when we're horny. So we think it's like real, but it's really not. And I'm actually recording tonight with a woman who made her own like porn company. So it's all like ethical porn and stuff like that. So we're going to talk a lot about that. So that should be interesting because she used to be an accountant and now she runs a porn company.
Like actual accountant?
Yeah.
Or okay, because a lot of times on Facebook and Twitter and stuff, if you see somebody that says, they're as a profession as accountant, it's because they have an OnlyFans.
No, she was an actual accountant and then stopped that and decided she wanted to work in the porn industry. But she doesn't she's not an actress or anything. She just owns the company and runs it and makes sure everything's like ethical and stuff like that.
Well, you need good people running that kind of business because, back in the days, 70s, 80s, when porn was at its height, man, there were some horror stories coming out of that business.
Yeah.
So if you had the chance to get one dream guest on your show.
Oh, God. Okay.
Yeah, somebody asked me this earlier today, and it jogged my mind. I was like, who would be a dream guest for my kind of topic?
Okay.
Who would your dream guest be? Now I'm going to tell you, all of time. Anybody currently living in the past.
Okay.
It doesn't have to be somebody alive today. Anybody from the history of forever. Who would be your dream guest?
I have like a couple options. Dr. Ruth.
Ah, that was mine.
She's so cute. Dr. Ruth, Dr. Drew Pinsky or one of those, Pinsky, something like that. He is really cool, and I like the way he speaks about things. So I probably have him too. And I also really like Dr. Emily, Sex with Emily. You know her?
That one doesn't ring any bells.
Really? She has had her show for 15 years. And people call in and ask her questions about sex and stuff. But yeah, I really like her. So those would be my top 3, I think. What about you?
Oh, well, yeah, my answer was Dr. Ruth.
She's so cute.
Because it's that whole thing is when she was doing her show, it was, the 80s and 90s, and there were, life was a little more narrow-minded.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to talk to her about, the way things are. Talk to her about 50 Shades of Grey. Talk to her about the people that are into pony play, where they actually dress up in hooves and a horse mask and pull a carriage around.
Yeah.
Just all these like furry conventions. I would love to hear her take on a furry convention and yiffing. It's just
she's also a Holocaust survivor.
I mean that in itself would be an amazing story to listen to.
Yeah, it's not really sex, I guess, but it's a cool little fact about her.
It's just being able to talk to somebody who's had that much life experience.
Yeah. And she also is like, I think it's cool that she's just like this little old lady that just like talks about sex, which like makes her more lovable almost. Like,
plus the way she talks, her accent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love her. So yeah, she would definitely be on my list. If possible, I'd get Dr. Ruth for sure.
Well, I really I wish you luck in furthering your education if you do decide to go that route.
Thank you. Much appreciated.
We need more open-minded people in the medical fields.
Mm-hmm.
I've learned that there are more like kink and fetish accepting therapists than there used to be.
Yeah.
It's not like kinks and fetishes aren't immediately seen as psychological disorders anymore, which is a great thing.
Yeah, it's interesting. I had a kink and poly friendly therapist on my show, and he's kink and poly friendly because he indulges in those things himself. So, but we talked about that, and we talked about how therapists do like to consider sometimes certain kinks and BDSM and stuff like that as a mental disorder, but it's simply not in the DSM-5. So you can't like diagnose someone with to have a mental disorder because they're into something, but they like to make you feel like something's wrong with you. It's messed up.
It's very messed up.
Mm-hmm. So I'm on the hunt for one of my own.
All right. Well, good luck with all that.
Much appreciated. Thank you.
Well, if you do get to the point where you are an accredited professional in the world of sexuality,
yeah,
I would love to have you back on the show and learn about that experience.
Okay.
That journey.
I'll keep you updated on that.
It's been fun talking to you.
You too. Thank you.
Every once in a while, it's nice to have kind of a less structured conversation.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you start off, it's like, well, we're going to talk about this, and then it just kind of branches out, and it's one of those natural conversation flow things.
Yeah, just a regular chat.
So, but do you have like social media and all that stuff where people can get a hold of you and your show?
Of course I do. So my Instagram for my podcast is the Tough Titties Podcast. If you want to follow my personal Instagram, it is at It's Your Girl Shawn, SHAWN. Twitter is at Tough Titties Pod. And then my TikTok is at Shawn_Jacobson. And then you can find Tough Titties basically anywhere you listen to podcasts, but it's also on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Those are like the most popular ones these days. So it's on there if you want to check it out.
Okay, and I will have links to all this stuff in the show notes. So it'd be just a click away.
Just a click away, guys.
If anybody has any comments or questions, you can get a hold of me. You can get a hold of her. She's got plenty of access. If you'd be interested in talking to her on her show, because some people feel more comfortable talking to a female than a male. You know, it's fun.
It's kind of true. I don't know why.
But, you know, get a hold of her. You know, I mean, I'd love to have more guests, but as long as the information's getting out there, I'm all for it.
Love that.
I have to give a shout out to my financial supporter, Zachary Hale. Thank you ever so much. Please rate and review the shows. Any podcast you're listening to. Doesn't have to be one of the sex ones. It could be somebody played Dungeons and Dragons. It could be somebody talking about their dog, whatever. If you're listening to it, rate it and review it somewhere, please. That's how other people find these shows. And we need the listeners.
Yeah.
Because we have the information.
Yeah.
But until next time, just keep communicating, keep each other safe, and remember to have fun. Bye.
Thank you for listening to Ludiverse. If you have any questions or comments, contact us on Twitter or Facebook. Just search for the Ludiverse. Remember to rate and review wherever you listen. If you want to help support the show, please consider donating to our Patreon.